So Lucy, we've all seen the pictures. We've seen an incredible body transformation that you've undergone recently, which has definitely hit the mainstream. It's all over the place, and it's very impressive. I've got to ask though, because every time I see someone undergo a radical change like that, I'm always curious to know what the trigger was. What was your trigger moment?
I think my trigger moment was stopping drinking. I think that was my main moment, where it was a gradual thing actually. Like, I stopped drinking, and then there was this hole where drinking used to be, and I feel like fitness, well, it started off as running, just filled that gap, and then it became as I'm sure you know, it just became an integral part of my life.
What made you think, okay, now I'm going to start running? Because there's a crutch, everyone has crutches they deal with to certain things, right? And you
Yeah.
take away alcohol. And what made you think, okay, I'm going to go for a run now?
Well, I was in Vegas with my friends. It was January. We went, I think, did we go for New Year? Or maybe a little bit later. But we were out there, and all my friends were super hungover in the morning. And I was like lying in bed, time difference had me awake like super early. And something, I've never run before. Something was just like, get up and run. And I couldn't tell you where it came from. And I ran 2.4K and thought I was going to die. And I was honestly like, I'm never doing that again. And then I went the next day, and I went the next day. And then 3 weeks after that, I did my first 10K. And then probably a couple of months after that, I did my first half marathon.
Oh, wow. So it escalated pretty quickly. And it was just running you were doing?
Yeah, well, at first it was running. I've always done bits and pieces of like boxing and attempted like hit stuff. But then during lockdown, it was like strength. I got a calf injury because I was running, like, I don't know, at least a half marathon every week, and then like various other runs, 5Ks and 3Ks for speed. So I got a calf injury, as you'd imagine. And so I picked up strength and conditioning, a bit of calisthenics, and now I literally do a bit of everything.
Yeah. So the trigger was to stop drinking. Talk us about that journey, because you've recently released a signal called Sober, actually, all about this. But talk about why you stopped drinking, and then first, like, why the drinking problem began in the first place.
Well, I've always had a bad relationship with alcohol. I actually, from being sober, have realized that my issue is with moderation. So I find it really hard to moderate things. So when I drink, I find it hard to moderate how much I'm drinking. When I eat, I always used to find it, and still do, quite hard to moderate what I'm eating. Even to a degree, with exercise. I started running, and then I was running a half marathon every week. I'd been on tour for 13 months, solid, just coming back now and then. And the life that I was living, I had a life at home. I was married. And then I had this life, there's this life that you're supposed to be living, and the life that I was actually living were two completely different things. So I kept sort of drinking to take the edge off stuff, like the edge off life, basically, and to accept that actually my life had changed into something completely different. Sorry, I fell over the washing basket there. My life had changed into something totally different to what I thought it was, and I kept thinking, I can't think about that right now, so I would drink.
So drinking was as a means to fill the void.
Yeah, pretty much. And like, when it wasn't, it was an opportunity to get so drunk that I could like escape. It's escapism.
What were you trying to escape from?
Just like the reality of life, like, how life moves. You make plans for yourself, and you try to establish roots in certain areas, and effectively sometimes you get that wrong. And where there are other people involved in that situation, like, your whole life is surrounded by other people. So when you make mistakes, that directly affects other people. And I guess I just kept doing that. And then eventually I just had to say, right, my relationship is over. This tour is finished. I need to stop and reestablish my connection with everything.
So that was the trigger to stop drinking then?
Yeah, I got back from the last show of summer. I travelled like 10 hours back home. I got home and my friends were all there. We were heading out to a festival and we just got wasted. Loads of drama. Woke up the next morning and I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore.
And you've not drank since, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. And with the extremes, you said that you struggle with moderation, with food, with exercise, even some positive behaviors, but also negative behaviors. What is that extreme feeling? Like, is it still an escape for you, or
I don't
have you been able to track what that's rooted towards?
I think the issue with moderation is not a part of the escapism. That's part of the way the culture of which I was brought up in, like watching my mum obsess over diets, and not diets like the kind of diet I have, diets like Atkins, like keto, like taking water retention tablets. So like obsessing over that and not being able to actually go. I guess I was never really taught moderation. So like my family are big drinkers, so I never saw anybody moderate their drinking. And the way that I saw people try to moderate eating was massively restrictive diets. So that's not actually moderating, that's restriction. And heavily restrictive diets lead to binging, which is a greater issue with moderation. So I think that that's just the way that I was raised, and what I saw around me. My issues with moderation are a product of that, I believe.
It's conditioning.
Yeah.
And have you been able to work on this or explore
Definitely.
this more? Yeah.
And like some days I eat intuitively, but sometimes I track. It depends what I'm doing. It's funny because my career has never been about my aesthetics, whereas now I might do a fitness shoot or a video where I need to be athletically at a point, my fitness needs to be quite high or I need to look quite lean. So now there'll be periods of time where I'm tracking quite religiously. But so it's funny, some people see tracking food, tracking calories and macros as disordered eating. But they don't see, pretty unhealthy eating as it's disordered eating. And you can call it what you like, but I control what goes into my body. And I can actually make my body now. I have the knowledge to make my body look exactly how I want it to. It's really interesting. I think fundamentally nobody is taught about energy and energy out at school, and that's quite frankly ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a massive mismatch in education. How have you found the education process of learning more about your body? Did you find yourself, were you someone who's completely misinformed with nutrition and self-care?
Yeah. And like the reason I try and help people not make mistakes is because initially I was training not as much as I train now, because I'm training for something at the moment, so I'm training twice a day, but I was training a lot, every day, and I was eating 1,200 calories and I felt like I was dying. Like every day I kept thinking, why do I feel so exhausted? Like I'm losing this weight, I'm eating 1,200 calories like all these diets tell you to, and I'm exercising. And like unbeknownst to me, what a basal metabolic rate is,
Yeah.
I didn't even know that the calories I was consuming were lower than what I need to survive in a sedentary state. And now I do. And it's really not that hard to to understand once somebody explains it to you.
Yeah. I think education is definitely the missing piece for most people. And like you said, schools are aware this is just isn't part of the curriculum, is it?
No.
And
all the time they're not teaching you, they're teaching you how to make a fruit salad. I literally remember being taught how to make a fruit salad at school.
Yeah.
Rather than being taught how to make a Victoria sponge. You should be taught about nutrition.
Yeah, for sure. You said your career's never been about aesthetics. How did you find being thrown into the limelight quite quickly? Did you feel a pressure to look a certain way or to or anything like that?
I've always been quite like, I don't really care about what people think.
Yeah.
Well, that was what I gave off. But honestly, I didn't care about what my health or my aesthetic appearance. I was in quite a depressed state for like a really long time, and actually it's really hard to look after yourself when you're in that state. And so I never really thought it had much of an impact on me until I like looked different. And when I sort of like showed people what I'd done with my body, like I have transformed my body, the attention I got from that was like greater than any PR from an album release that I've ever done. People are really interested in drastic changes in people's bodies, and people, I think deep down, everybody wants to get involved in fitness or health. They just don't really know how to do it. So it's really interesting for people, and it's added a new area to my career.
You said you were in a depressive state. Can you talk more about what triggered that and what kind of led you down that?
I've always struggled with my mental health. Always had a lack of clarity. Alcohol made that significantly worse. I've abused alcohol. I've always been followed around by a dark cloud, and I never really had an outlet to work on that. And I can honestly say I've never felt so mentally well as when I started working out.
Yeah, we say the physical is the vehicle, because if you take care of your physical, everything else, it acts as a vehicle for everything else in your life. Your mental, your emotional, your social, and your spiritual well-being, and everything takes off. Have you experienced that to the max?
Yeah. Well, like when I'm working out, I finish working out and I feel like I haven't thought about the things that are on my mind while working out, but they seem to have just stacked themselves in a slightly more consumable and digestible stack. But that wasn't a conscious thing. It was like I gave my body a moment to not think about it in a conscious sense, and it just sorts it out for me.
Yeah. With the struggles with mental health, how did you find that when you said you were living almost two lives? You felt you had the one at home, and then you had the on tour life. How did you manage the pressures of that, and just going from almost being quote unquote normal to being thrown in the limelight and having extra pressure added on? How did you find that transition and dealing with the mental health challenges that come with this? Because it's very easy to see people making music, etc., and that everything's going well for them, but the realities are often a lot different.
I've been touring for solidly for 8 years, 4 or 5 tours a year. So I'm away for 7 or 8 months of the year. And so that's always been normal. But it was kind of the life that I was trying to achieve, the life that all my other 30-something-year-old friends are doing. Settle down, have children. It's not an option for me. It's not a viable option, and that was what I was forcing. And so the answer is I didn't deal with it.
Yeah.
The way I dealt with it was I ended my relationship, and chose to change effectively everything about my lifestyle.
Is there more to it than the alcohol? What else have you changed?
Oh, like I don't drink. I work out. I'm more productive. I in turn, it's a whole the whole lifestyle has changed.
Yeah.
So like almost my whole life was about drinking, and when I was gonna drink, what show day didn't have a show the next day, so we could all get on the tour bus and just get wasted. Oh no, I can't make Sunday. Sorry, I'm gonna be hungover. Like now, I have a whole day where I'll say something and then I'll end up going because I'm reliable now, and like I want to do things. I get more experience and more juice out of life.
Your break from alcohol came pretty sudden. Like it's very rare for someone to wake up in Vegas and just think this is it, right? But for others who struggling to break that addiction, what can you say to them? Because we come across a lot of people who are struggling with alcohol, and finding it difficult to pull back on it.
You just have to give yourself time. Like I had sober spells and various experiments with trying to be sober and trying to have the life that I do now, and I just wasn't ready for it. And it's annoying and sad and frustrating that you can't force it, but that if you keep trying you can't fail. So like even by drinking, when you want to be sober, you still haven't failed, because if you were sober for an hour, if you were sober for a day, if you were sober for a month, if you were sober for a year, you did it. It doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that it's taken a different turn, and you can now take that wherever you want to go with it.
Yeah. Did you create accountability around it, or
Yeah,
you did? Yeah.
you got to be accountable. Like you've got to. That's with everything.
What did you do? Did you have a support group?
I made sober friends.
Okay.
I made sure that all of my friends knew that I was sober. I think I was 3 months sober when I put it online. And for me, that, I put it online, that means the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Mirror. Like, that means everybody knows.
Yeah.
And so I guess by doing that, that was when I was kind of sure that this was going to be a long-term thing.
And what's the reception been like since?
It's amazing. Well, I'm sure you've come across people fit shaming. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're too skinny, or why do you work out so much, or all that nonsense. The same thing happens with alcohol. Why would you drink non-alcoholic beer if it hasn't got alcohol in it? All these stupid questions that are actually just a reflection of the person asking the question.
Totally.
But majority is just an incredible response, and people are great.
Yeah. Has that been the same with your fitness as well? Have you faced a lot of social stigmas around this? Yeah.
Yeah. I never even knew fit shaming was a thing. As a woman, it's really funny. Other women say I'm too skinny, and men say I'm too muscly.
Oh.
And so for a lot of women, they're uncomfortable with their body fat percentage, and a lot of men are uncomfortable with the composition of their muscle. And so when a man does say you look like a bloke, I'm like, okay, all right, that's fine. Like, don't worry about it. If muscles mean manly to you, that's fine. Like, I just think I find it really interesting that people, it's never other people, and I'm totally on board with the fact you do not have to be aesthetically fit looking, in inverted commas, to be fit, to be super strong, to be an athlete. But it's never anyone who is an athlete, it's never anyone who is fit or strong who says those things.
Yeah, totally. It's always that reflection. It's like them looking at themselves in the mirror.
Yeah.
And how have you dealt with it? Like, obviously you can hear now that you're completely fine about it, but how did it feel at the beginning?
It's horrible, because like you do these things, it's a success. you've done something that other people find it actually, to lose like 3.5 stone and to have take it. I don't even know what my resting heart rate was, but I can guarantee you it was very high. To having a sub 42, like running half marathons, it's all really hard. And when somebody tries to take that away from you at the beginning, that's really hard to digest.
Yeah. How have you found? So I one thing I always say, like I say it with, with the intention of creating some impact as well. But I say getting in shape is easy, but staying in shape is a whole different ballgame. And that's really the difference, isn't it? Like, you can get into shape, and anyone can get into shape, really, but can you stay there? How have you find that bit, the since you've got into shape? Talk us through the process of that you found.
Well, I just think that once you stop looking for a quick fix, like, quick fixes never work. Like you say, you can get in shape, 100%, starve yourself, eat 1,000 calories a day for a month. Like, you will lose that body fat. But actually, if you learn and consume as much knowledge about your physical composition as possible, your nutrition, your relationship with food and alcohol, your relationship with exercise, they are the components that keep you there. It's like, it is just relearning how to do things. It's like, I used to finish a show and be like, where's the beers?
Yeah.
Because when we celebrate, we get drunk. That's what we do. And then for a while, when alcohol was gone, I'd finish a show and be like, okay, where's the chocolate bar? But actually, now I do something that's an achievement, finish a show, and I'll just be like, you know what? That was a great show. Well done. Self-validation. I don't need to reward myself with effectively a material. And like, I think that is the most, like, that's the defining part of staying fit or staying how you want to be. It's like, your only competitor, unless you're a competitive athlete, your only competitor is you. And the only validation that should matter should be from you. And so, like, just give yourself that. Be like, look in the mirror and be like, you're amazing. Well done.
Yeah, shifting the focus from external validation to internal validation makes all the difference.
That's it.
Because then you're doing it for yourself, and it's the whole cliche of like you versus you, but the reality is that's what it is. It's only a process of self mastery and getting a bit better each day. And
there's all kind of things that are like secret hacks.
Yeah.
That it's like, I could, like, making good decisions. So like, I could eat that piece of cake now, or I could not eat that piece of cake, and later I could do this thing. Like, I could have cake with my friends or something. Like, it's about what you would be doing instead. So like, I learned this from ESG Fitness, Emma Story Gordon. I don't know if you know her. She's got a great podcast. And it's like, assessing situations, like, do I want to go, someone asked me to the cinema, do I want to go to the cinema? What will I do if I don't go to the cinema? Like, it's about measuring things that you want and then issuing out that in moderation. It's a really interesting prospect.
Yeah, it's the change but it's rewiring a behavior that you're so used to doing.
Yeah.
But it's also rewiring an identity. You know, I've heard you say you still see yourself as a fat girl in the mirror, right?
Sometimes.
How have you found that process? Because that's in itself can be the most difficult in actually feeling good in that new skin of yours.
Body dysmorphia is a huge thing, and like, if you've spent your life overweight and then all of a sudden, I'm not just like skinny. I have a completely different physique to even the one that I had 6 months ago. And so I'm seeing somebody about that, a psychotherapist, about the body dysmorphia, because like, I don't think anybody, what you see in the mirror is not what people see with their own eyes. Your brain just makes you see whatever you want to see. And it's not so much that I see a fat person, it's that I know my fear is underneath all of this change, it's the same person who will eat the whole cake or who will drink all the beers. And that's the fear. That's the thing that I have to correct, is a little bit of trust in myself.
How long have you been in this new shape now for?
Probably about 14 months, 15 months.
So yeah, it's definitely in that, you're still in that transition period of rewiring. Yeah. And what I found is it takes at least that 2-year mark for people to really become automatic with their new behaviors, feel natural in that new identity, and feel like it's normal, like this is it. Because like you said, like when people lose, say for example, 3.5 stone like you have, you're probably still thinking like the woman 3.5 stones ago. You haven't, the behavior change hasn't adapted to whatever your body weight is now, or whatever the lifestyle you're leading now. It's still very conscious versus subconscious and entrenched into your behavior.
It's true. Like, you know, I train, like I was saying, I train twice a day at the moment, and I would still be like, yeah, oh, I can't eat that, can I? And then I'm like, dude, you burn like 3,500 calories a day, just shut up. And it's stuff that I know.
Yeah,
it's stuff, and it's not even about calorie in, calorie out anymore. It's like, you know, you're not going to eat the whole cake, so shut up.
Yeah. But you've almost got to like give yourself confidence for that new identity. It's like you've just got to almost convince your body and your brain that this is real. Like this is the lifestyle now. And
that's the hard bit. Like you say, losing the weight, that's nothing. Maintaining not only the weight loss, it's the mindset.
Yeah,
that is hard. And I will never, you know, people always ask me if it's hard, and I'm like, yeah, it is. You're not going to get this by doing, you might get it by doing keto, but in my opinion, you can't do keto for your whole life, because that is miserable. Nobody wants to be on keto.
No, nobody wants to eat butter all day.
No. And like, it's dangerous too. But like, what's the word? There's no consistency with a fad. It has to be a whole rehaul.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said it's not easy, because the message should be out there. Like, this is hard. Like it's hard to transform yourself. It's not an easy task to undo so many years of behavior and thinking and consciousness and all this sort of stuff. You've got to go through a lot of muck in order to get there, and you're going to fail a lot of times as well. Like, what are some of your like failures in this transformation that you've experienced? Have you had any setbacks along the way?
I think I've been pretty lucky with regards to the only failures that I've had have been overworking. So like injury.
Okay.
So like running way too much, skipping. I was watching films in my living room, skipping for like 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And my soleus muscle is like this. And so now I have like long-term issues with a couple of muscles because I was overtraining. And then my failures, because actually failure to recognize when you need to recover is a massive failure. That's probably the biggest failure that anybody on this journey will come across, isn't it?
Going too extreme. So what are you training twice a day for now then? Speaking of extreme.
I have a music video coming up where I'm a boxer.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And the opponent actually used to box for Britain, and we'll be doing a few rounds of authentic fighting.
Oh wow, okay. When is that?
But,
what are you training? How are you training for it?
In a couple of weeks, I'm doing a lot of cardio work, strength and conditioning, and I'm trying to work on my explosive power in my arms and my legs.
Awesome. That's skipping for 3 hours. You should be. No wonder your resting heart rate's sub 42.
It's it's just a bit nuts. Like the cardio, at first I only ever knew cardio existed, so
Yeah.
I was a cardio monster.
Good. Yeah, I think it's yeah, you're doing all the right things which will make this, there's no going back for you.
No.
Do you fear that though? Or do you now
I think
feel?
that's a fear for like anybody that's having
Yeah.
transformative period of their life. So like you're scared of what you're scared of the past, but I do actually think that's a very natural
Yeah.
thought. But there's not one part of me that thinks this is not everything. I can't imagine not having this.
Yeah. And with everything you've gained from this new lifestyle, how do you foresee your career, your life? What do you think you're going to be doing that you wouldn't have been able to do, say, 14 months ago, 18 months ago?
I think just to be like consistently present, both physically and mentally. Touring is exhausting.
Yeah.
Playing shows to several thousand people every night is hard, and like it's hard on your heart. You're full of adrenaline for an hour and a half. You're jumping around a stage and trying to entertain, and you're engaged. So it's actually just great to feel like I'm actually completely prepared for that. I'm completely prepared for anything that life throws at me too, because I know I have an outlet.
Yeah.
I've got my running shoes. That's me. I'm off. See you later. Like, you want to give me shit? Nah. See ya. I'm going running.
Yeah. Talk about the tour life. Like, what is? There's always a glamour around it, but what is the reality of it, and just
The
how much it takes
reality,
out of you?
I love it more than anything else. The shows are incredible,
Yeah.
but you share a tour bus with 12 or 13 people, mainly big stinky men, and the pressure is on. If I don't show up, if I have a sore throat, if I got the flu, it's like 3,500 people. They've travelled all the way there that night. They're at the venue, and I let them down. It's huge. It's a huge responsibility. So like, the morning you get up, have your breakfast. The crew start loading in all the stuff. I used to just kind of float around, and last year I did a tour around this time of the year, and instead of floating around, I had to go down to a gym. Given I had no idea what I was doing at that point, I used to just sit in there like twiddling my thumbs.
Yeah.
But I think it will change a lot. There's drugs and alcohol like everywhere in the music industry, but the tour I did last year was a 36-date tour across the UK, and I changed my rider to non-alcoholic beers. My keys player was sober for the tour. My tour manager had been sober for 10 years. Like, it's just great.
You're starting to have that ripple impact in your community.
I think people honestly, you'll know this with fitness. People get weird envy. They're like, stuff is really working out for you without alcohol. So they give it a go, and that's great.
Yeah. I mean, you got a powerful message, and I think you should continue to push it out there, because the more people that can take care of them, put themselves as a priority, the better impact they're going to have in their worlds.
100%, totally agree.
So you said, so the fitness industry itself, you've had a bit more exposure to it now. It's a very male-dominated, masculine environment. How do you think we can encourage more women to hold credible positions in the industry?
It's a hard one. I'm actually doing my level 3 personal training now with Future Fitness. So I'm going to find myself in more of those environments, but I'm a pretty sturdy, I'm actually really short. I'm like 5'3", and I'm about a size 6. But I am also quite sturdy and quite confident. I also know what to do in the gym, right? And I lift weights. I lift quite heavy weights by anyone's records. I feel intimidated by men in the gym because of the way they look at me sometimes, or the way stuff they'll say, out of heaven forbid when a man comes up to me and asks me if I need help with something, if he's just a punter at that gym and he's not a personal trainer, which, can you believe, has happened. Like, no, I don't need you to help me. That's why I'm at the gym on my own. Don't talk to me. Like, can you imagine if I came up to you and was like, do you need spotting? You'd be like, no.
Yeah.
Also, I would have come here with a friend. It's that's I don't know how you stop it. I don't know how you
How have you embraced that? Like, if you say you're still feeling intimidated, or I'm assuming it's lower than it was.
yeah, I just
How have
work
you worked
through
on that?
it.
Because a lot of women go through this. They struggle to go into the gym, and then one of the biggest blockers, and one of the reasons why they prefer classes, for example, is because they feel that safe space, but they don't feel that in the weight room.
I don't feel
Yeah.
safe, like it's a safe space. I have a video. My friend was filming me doing like socks press or something, just working on mobility, I think it was. And there's this guy in the back of the video, and he's just staring at me.
Yeah.
And like, obviously, we weren't looking at that. We weren't like. I know the guy is a dickhead because he's in the gym all the time and he's loud and he's a performer and everyone knows he's there, but he stood just staring at me. I like, when the only time I'd stare at somebody in the gym is if they were going for a PR or a PB and I knew them. And I was like, come on, you got it. Easy as pie. Come on, offering a bit of support. That's the only time I'd get involved. Like, I don't know. For me, the etiquette is like, don't really. I don't stare at guys doing reps, so I don't understand why they stare at me.
Yeah. It's a very weird environment, and
It's so weird.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard because I think you can only experience it as a woman, right? Like,
Yeah.
what you're saying is like, but I know so many women who are listening to this will probably be nodding their head.
Oh, they will.
Because it's probably the biggest blocker, and it's a shame because there's so much benefit in the weight room to getting stronger, to building muscle, to all the empowering benefits it gives you. But there's a blocker which isn't even related to the actual equipment, and it's just the people.
I totally, like, it's a thing too. Like, you won't catch me on a cross trainer or a stepper because I'll just run up an incline. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like those machines. The ones that would be lady machines.
Yeah.
Not, I wouldn't say they were lady machines, but you know what I mean. And so yeah, I am in the weights room, and I've never been bullied out or anything like that. But I really hate feeling.
Yeah.
I don't feel like anyone is in the gym to be sexy. Like, that, obviously, when you leave, you might feel sexy and stuff, but when you're in there, you're not there to be objectified. You're there to work on yourself. So to have anybody sort of assess you externally is like, boring.
Yeah, totally agree. And even just the mindset of like lady machines or lady exercises, all of this stuff just really needs to change, because it's taking
so
people
much
away
of-
from actually the power of the quote unquote man exercises, which there's no
Exactly.
such thing, right?
This is why I love CrossFit, because it's like they really actively encourage women to be there. It's like a spin class. Everybody benefits from doing spin. It's not. It's just a ridiculously horrible cardio experience. You don't have to be a lady to be on a bike, and the same way, road cycling and spin are very similar. But I've got a road bike, but everybody else I know that has a road bike is a bloke. I go to spin, and everyone else I know that goes to spin is a woman.
Yeah.
It's a really divisional thing going on. You're right, and I don't know how you fix it.
I guess conversations like this and creating awareness is probably the first step.
Definitely.
And then take it from there. So Lucy, your tour's going live this week. You got a new album coming out next year, and you have the UK's first socially distanced tour, as you mentioned. Tell us more about this.
Well, it's announced today. People have to adhere to their local lockdowns, obviously, and we've done everything we can to make it a safe and smooth experience. The venues are going to be quite empty because of the distancing, and we kind of had to just rely on people to be effective and safe themselves, which I'm anticipating positively.
You sound a bit unsure, but I guess it's all an unknown, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. But somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to put their foot in the door. It's like that guy in Liverpool when they were shutting the gyms. He kept his gym open, and he is the reason why when places are getting locked down, the gyms are still open. Some people have to be the ones to light a torch or lead the way. Awesome.
Hopefully your torch brings to life again the entertainment industry, because the entertainment industry struggled a lot during COVID, and I'm sure you probably have many connections and friends who've struggled immensely. What is the vibe in the industry, and like what is the
everyone's just pissed off that we weren't given any, and still haven't been given any direction. Nobody knows what to do.
Yeah. Well, hopefully your tour changes it. So
I hope so.
So Lucy, where can people find out more about the tour, find out more about your album, anything else you got going on? Where's the best place to go?
At lucyspraggan.com or on social media. Chuck me a message.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on, Lucy. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Cheers for having me.